Top 10 richest convicted criminals of all time. Even though they say crime doesn't pay well, several gangsters suggest otherwise. Here we are with the list of top 10 richest convicted criminals of all time.
Number 10. John Gotti. As of 2021, John Gotti's net worth is estimated to be roughly around $30 million, making him the 10th richest criminal in history. He grew up in poverty and turned to a life of crime at an early age. He became the boss of the Gambino crime family, operating out of New York City. The Gambino family made hundreds of millions of dollars each year from a combination of loan sharking, gambling, hijacking, and extortion. In 1992, John Gotti was convicted of 5 murders: conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to life in prison and was transferred to United States Penitentiary. While in prison, Gotti died of throat cancer in June of 2002.
Number 9. Rayful Edmond. The legendary drug lord Rayful Edmond has a net worth of $50 million. He was notorious for dealing crack cocaine and making millions of dollars in the 80s. He's considered to be responsible for the introduction of crack cocaine to Washington, D.C. Edmond became a millionaire in his early 20s. He began flaunting his wealth, spending money on luxurious cars, clothing, and decadent partying. During the 1989, about 60% of the city's market belonged to him. Taking into account the increasing murder rate over the war for drugs, the police carried out a series of investigations and raged to finally arrest him in 1989. He was sentenced to 2 life terms for several federal offenses. However, he later struck a deal with the law enforcement cooperation and became a government informant. Number 8. Big Meech. Demetrius Edward, famous by the name Big Meech, possesses a net worth of $100 million. Big Meech is the founder of a black mafia family, which is a drug trafficking and money laundering organization in the US. He and his brother began selling bags of cocaine on the streets of Detroit during their high school years of the late 1980s. By the year 2000, the 2 brothers had established a large organization overseeing multi-kilogram cocaine distribution cells throughout the US. Both brothers were sentenced to 30 years in prison for running a nationwide cocaine trafficking ring in 2008. Big Meech is currently serving his sentence at Federal Correctional Institution, Sheridan, and will be released in May of 2032. Number 7. Al Capone. American gangster Al Capone, also known as Scarface, has a net worth of $100 million. He was expelled from school for punching a female teacher, after which he joined a local street gang. Later he moved to Chicago and became a bodyguard for the head of crime syndicate, Johnny Torrio. Capone succeeded him as the boss of the Chicago outfit after Torrio retired and proceeded to have a 7-year reign as a crime boss during the Prohibition era. He was responsible for expanding through violent means while maintaining relationships with the city officials. In 1931, Capone was prosecuted for tax evasion and was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. However, by the time he died, Capone supposedly couldn't remember where he had hidden his fortune, as he was suffering from syphilis. All the treasure he owned and stashed is still a mystery. In 1947, Capone died of heart failure as a result of internal bleeding. Number 6. El Chapo Guzman. El Chapo, worthy of $1 billion, was born in a poor family. El Chapo became one of the biggest traffickers of drugs in the US over time. In 1993, he was arrested and was later sentenced to 20 years in prison on charges of conspiracy, drug trafficking, and bribery. After 8 years behind bars, Guzman broke out of jail. After 13 years on the run, Guzman was recaptured by Mexican Marines in February 2014. However, in July 2015, Guzman again managed to escape, leaving the officials outraged. The Mexican Marines again caught him after a fierce gun battle in January 2016. He was extradited to the United States in January 2017, where he's currently serving a life sentence. Number 5. Griselda Blanco. Having a net worth of $2 billion, Blanco is known as the Black Widow. Wondering why? Because she murdered all 3 husbands she had, one after the other. At the age of 11, she helped kidnap a boy, and after his wealthy family refused to pay the ransom, she fatally shot him. She was alleged to be a pickpocket and prostitute. After murdering her first husband, she began a relationship with Alberto Bravo, a drug trafficker whom she ultimately married. It was through him that she became involved in the cocaine trade. But years later, she realized that her husband was stealing money, and a shootout between the couple resulted in Bravo's death. She reportedly later had her third husband killed for some reasons. She was arrested in New York to face the drug charges. She received a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison, but Blanco ultimately pled guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, and 6 years later she was released. She supposedly retired from a life of crime. Number 4. Adnan Khashoggi. Labeled by the media as the era's most prolific weapon dealer, Khashoggi made his $2 billion fortune. Despite his brokering deals between arms manufacturers, governments and private clients, he was never convicted of any crime. He was intimately involved in both the Iran-Contra scandal and the Lockheed bribery scandal. Khashoggi was also the catalyst for a series of bankruptcies. He was a world-class playboy and reportedly had a harem of pleasure wives that was made up of models from all over the world. He reportedly spent $250,000 per day funding his lifestyle. Khashoggi died on 6 June 2017 while being treated for Parkinson's disease at the St. Thomas Hospital in London at the age of 81. Number 3. Carlos Leder. Having a net worth of $2.7 billion, Leder was well known for running a massive cocaine distribution network centered around his private island called Norman City. At the age of 15, Leder began his criminal career by selling marijuana in stolen cars in the United States and Canada, but he was soon arrested. While in prison, he made the most out of his time by speaking with various inmates, learning about the international drug trade. He eventually made a history in running a successful drug deal, earning roughly $1.5 million in cash per day from his island alone. But in 1983, the Bahamian government froze all of Carlos Leder's bank accounts and seized all of his properties. A few years later, he was captured by the officials and received a life sentence plus 135 years. However, this was reduced after he agreed to cooperate with the authorities. After more than 33 years and 4 months in captivity, he was finally released from prison in June of 2020. Number 2. Leona Helmsley. Nicknamed as the Queen of Mean by the press due to her flamboyant personality and reputation for tyrannical behavior, Leona Helmsley has a net worth of $8 billion, making her the second richest criminal in the world. She became the object of loathing and disgust for many people when she quipped that only the little people pay taxes. She lived in a dazzling penthouse with her husband and also maintained an impressive mansion in Greenwich. Although she lavishly furnished her resident, but was curiously diligent about evading the required payments and taxes for their purchases, Leona purchased hundreds and thousands of dollars of jewelry in New York City without paying the taxes due. In 1989, Helmsley received 16 years in prison for a wide variety of tax offenses, resulting in several $1 million owed. Interestingly, the judge ordered her prison sentence to start on the 15th of April, which is tax day. Number 1. Pablo Escobar. The world's richest convicted criminal of all time is Pablo Escobar. Known as the King of Cocaine, Pablo surpasses some of the richest billionaires on earth. As of 2021, Escobar possesses a net worth of $30 billion. His lavish lifestyle included private planes, luxurious homes, and over-the-top parties. Escobar's way of handling problems was plata o plomo, meaning bribes or bullets. While he preferred the former, he had no qualms about the latter option. Earning a reputation for ruthlessness, he reportedly killed some 4,000 people, including numerous police officers and government officials. Escobar, whose partnership with Leder was portrayed in the hit Netflix series Narcos, and he was killed in a shootout with police in Medellin in 1993. That's all for today. If you enjoyed watching this video, hit the like button below and make sure to subscribe. We'll see you all in the next video.